This is the XrmToolCast with business applications MVPs Jonas Rapp and Daryl Labar, the podcast focused on tools available for Dynamics 365 from CRM Audio. This episode is brought to you by CRmUG. CRmUG is the user group for Dynamics 365 and CRM. The user group for Dynamics 365 and CRM community is powered by users, for users, and specializes in the delivery of member-driven education, networking, and events to help you maximize your current Microsoft Dynamics investment. We thank D365UG for sponsoring the XrmToolCast.
Welcome to XrmToolCast, Episode 3, with your hosts, Daryl Labar and Jonas Rapp. Hey, Jonas, how you doing?
It's great, thank you, Daryl. And you?
I'm doing good. Doing anything fun lately?
Yeah, I just came back from a skiing holiday in the Swedish mountains. It was great, and my whole family. And actually, I've come to realize it's really great. I get to see my family evolve in the slopes there. And well, I don't because I peaked when I was 17 or something. But I think I'm still up there, so there's something good for me as well there. And how about you?
I am not a skier by any way or shape or form. I grew up attempting to ski on the Michigan mountains, which they're just hills. But I'm not a skier. So nope, I've been spending time working on little a side project, little native script project, something that's even outside of CRM, just for the fun of it. It's been fun.
Yeah, that sounds almost as fun as skiing.
It sounds almost as fun. Yes. So, all right. So we have a new year, new episode. We are ready to roll.
Absolutely.
So this episode, we are going to cover basically getting started developing for the XrmToolBox as a developer. So and actually, I don't even think we've actually mentioned the actual URL to the XrmToolBox, and this is the third episode, so kind of shame on us for doing that. But if you don't know what the XrmToolBox is, or you haven't ever downloaded or anything else, head off to the XrmToolBox.com. and go check that out, and you can download it there. But for developers, there's a XrmToolBox.com/documentation/for-developers link, and we'll put that link in the show notes, that you can go to actually do a pretty simple, well, we say simple because we've done it a few times, but hopefully a fairly simple and comprehensive method for going through and creating your first plugin. Is that the first place to start, Jonas?
Yeah, I think it is, and you can find the link by going to the main page there as well. And I know it's the documentation has developed or evolved over time, and it still does. Most of it by Tanguy, some of it by me. I think you've contributed there as well. I think it's a really good starting point to begin with.
Okay. Yeah. But first, before you actually, that's a good starting point to get the instructions with it. But there are some tools that you'll need to either be comfortable with, or some knowledge that you need to have ahead of time. So what are some of those things there that they're going to need? They're going to need to have Visual Studio, correct?
Yeah, obviously. That's the development platform we're using for C#. It's probably possible in other tools as well, but let's stick to the standard tooling here.
Standard tooling. We have C#.
Yep.
Then WinForm, that's kind of the fun one. That's the fun one that the CRM Viking, Marius, was kind of not happy with when he wrote his first plugin, because he hadn't ever done any WinForm development stuff. So I think both you and I grew up where that was the thing to do back in the day. It wasn't this internet thing. We were doing Windows.
What is that anyway?
Yes, what is this internet thing? So WinForm development. So what's any tips for people that don't know any WinForm development that we can give them?
Well, it's not since we grew up with it, it's not very difficult, of course. No, but I think, once you get a hang of it and learn how to place your controls on your controls and sort of layer the different containers and controls within each other, and I think the basic sort of tips would be to make sure you have your anchors and docking correctly, so that it will resize with the window as you stretch it and maximize it, because that's usually the thing you stumble upon the first time you go into WinForm development.
Yeah, so it's just drag and drop, but then you also have to handle when things resize, and so that's when anchoring things or having it fill are the two things you really need to watch out for, and sometimes that may need nesting forms and nesting controls and things like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
the good news is there's a whole not hierarchy, but a whole legacy of information out there for people that have done WinForms for years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And usually
cool.
it kind of says a lot about the technology when you have to Stack Overflow something and you find this post from 2008 and it has the answer you want. Then you realize, okay, this is not cutting edge, but it works.
Nope. Yeah. Anytime you're over a decade, it's definitely not new, but it works. So that's good.
Yep. Yeah, and I'd like to add to this your sort of prerequisites in tooling and or knowledge. You also have to be slightly familiar with the Nugget, or at least find out how to use it, because all the packages, the tools themselves are published as Nugget packages, and that's how XrmToolBox will discover and download them to the client's installations.
You say nugget, I say nougat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's stick with a nougat then. You're the American.
Well, I don't know. Just because I'm an American doesn't mean I'm right.
No, really?
As much as I assume that is the case, but yeah, it's kind of fun. Yep. So yeah, the nougat thing really that's how the plugin. Well, first that's how you're going to download some of the SDK libraries that you're going to be using for the XrmToolBox, and that's also how the packages are distributed and loaded up to the store, the plugin store. So
I think that's actually a really cool part of this, that the very technology and framework or architecture that Visual Studio uses to get the dependencies you need to do the development, the same one is used for the distribution of the actual tools for XrmToolBox, and which is of course embedded into XrmToolBox on the plugin store there. It's nice when you can reuse the distribution platform that's already out there.
It sort of feels like a hack way of doing it, but it works very well, and it's designed to distribute DLLs, which is exactly what we need for this thing. So yeah, that was a major move when we started to use the NuGet whole process for deploying the plugins. Quick note though, you don't actually have to push your code to NuGet. If you have something that's internal, you can always manually give the DLLs to people or have a local server where you're having people download them directly. But yeah, it's designed to use NuGet to automatically import those plugins. So the first step really for playing around with a new plugin is probably to download the template. There is a template that's listed out on the XrmToolBox documentation site for developers, and you can go ahead and download that and play that. And that's actually deployed to the plugin store, isn't it?
No, I don't think it is available from the Visual Studio Marketplace. So we'll post the link to that as well.
Okay.
So you can download it from the Marketplace, or you can also find it in Visual Studio. When you want to open a new project, you can browse for online templates, and you can find it there. So the template is downloadable from within Visual Studio as well.
This is an actual template itself. Okay. So this is something that I haven't even played with since I haven't created a new plugin in I guess a couple of years. But yes, this is an actual Visual Studio template. See, it is. Yeah. See, I'm learning something, and I'm supposed to be sharing all my knowledge. But yes, okay, well, this is great.
Great.
Well, that makes life a little bit easier.
It sure does. And that template, when we downloaded that, we realized that and create a new project from it. We get a few initial C# files there. We get the first thing that we should start editing is the class inheriting the PluginBase class. And this one has just information about the tool we are creating, like the name and description and sort of the background colors and things to be shown in the tool list in the XrmToolBox, and also encoded icons. And don't forget to change those, because otherwise your tool will be rejected immediately. And that file is sort of there from the template, so you can just change the values to whatever you want. That's where we start.
That's the number one way to get rejected from the XrmToolBox plugin store, huh?
Exactly.
Don't change the icon. Go change it. So,
Yep.
Yeah. So that's something that we haven't really talked about a whole lot, but there is a rather modest plugin process where we go through and approve or reject plugins that are uploaded to NuGet as far as being included in the actual plugin store itself. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a few things that we check there. One of the things is the thing we mentioned with what happens when you resize the window. Another is, does it crash if you're not connected to a CRM organization, or how does it manage when you change the connection during the work, and a few things like that. There are sort of standard checkpoints before approving a new tool in the plugin store.
Yeah, we don't really check to see is it helpful. Just all right. Can I connect to it? Does it connect to a different organization? Does it handle switching connections and all that kind of fun stuff? Yeah, that's the stuff that.
So you check that it works. You don't ask why.
Yeah, that's probably a good disclaimer of we don't ask why. We just say yeah, it works. Whatever it does, yeah.
And when we say we, it means that, Tanguy is obviously the main sort of approver of new tools, but he has also delegated that privilege to me and Daryl in this case.
So I like to go, whenever I go to conferences, I always like to say that I'm the only person on 6 continents that has the ability to do that. That's primarily just because you and Tanguy are on the same continent normally, so yeah. I'll claim the other ones.
And you cover the rest. That's great.
So
it's a good way to get free beer. Can you please approve my tool?
So I gotta figure out something else that I want, because I don't drink beer. I don't drink alcohol. So I don't drink coffee. I need to find something to drink, or I just eat mass quantities of food. Pizza. You want to give me pizza? Okay. I'll get some pizza.
Yeah. Okay. Give Daryl pizza for the 6 continents and me beer for the Europe.
Pizza. Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's great. Okay, so anyway, let's continue. I think the other file that's created for you when you create the template is basically the actual control that is your tool, and it inherits the PluginControlBase in this case, which I think was created by you, right?
Yes. Yep. Originally it was called the PluginBase, but then there was a restructuring so that we had a little bit separation of concerns there by Tanguy, and so yeah, now it's the PluginControlBase. So I was the instigator of that, which is kind of crazy to me because I think Tanguy had like 15 plugins at the time, and he never noticed that, oh, I'm redoing this everywhere, or copy pasting this, or maybe he was so busy on building new stuff he wasn't maintaining the old stuff. I'm not sure, but yeah, I wrote 2, and I'm like, oh, that's once too many. I need to not do this all the time. So that was kind of the start of it.
I'm betting three buttons on his keyboard are very, very worn out. It's the Control and the C and the V.
Yep, that's the backspace is another one too. That's pretty worn out in mine too.
Yeah.
Stuff. So.
Okay.
Yep, so that's a PluginControlBase. What does that do?
Well, this is actually the control. It's the form that's opened in your tool when you click it in the XrmToolBox. And from the template, it's quite empty. It has a few controls there just for sample code to see how things can be done, and actually some code behind as well. So you have a menu bar with a button to close the tool, and a button to try some sample code. And then also some shows notifications and a bit like that. So usually you look at this code the first time you create a tool and you realize, okay, this is how it's done. And then you delete that. You can delete the controls or just change the name of them to represent what you want your tool to do.
Yep.
But it's basically your blank canvas with some sample controls and sample code behind.
Yep. Good old WinForm development, and I highly recommend that when you do start doing that, to try to put your information in your plugin into something else besides that actual control base, to put the logic in it somewhere else. For an example, in the early bound generator, I moved as much of the logic as I could out of that actual control base class into another class that was just a logic class, and then I was able to take that logic class and quickly create another NuGet package, another whole GitHub project that allowed you to basically consume the early bound generator logic from any sort of app that didn't have any dependency on the XrmToolBox at all. So don't be married to it.
And it's not just for the possibility of extracting the code and doing something else with it, or doing it from another sort of endpoint, but also for, basically code tidiness. You shouldn't have your logic in the actual event handlers for control events. Like when you click a button, you should simply just call the method that's actually doing stuff. I'd like to add another tip when you're designing your form or your controls, laying them out, and especially when you are experimenting with the properties of the controls, that you can see in the properties window of a control, anything that's not using its default value is always in bold. The text with the value is bold. So if you're trying around, you're changing the properties of the controls just to see how it behaves, you can always look for the bold properties and reset those to sort of start over. And usually I think I want to have as much as possible by the default behavior, because these controls have been around for like 25 years, most of them. So they have a default value for a reason. And it also affects how the user perceives how the form works. If you change sort of the drop-down behavior of a drop-down control, it will not work as all other drop-down controls in Windows. So try to keep as much as possible to the default values, and then change just the ones that you actually want to affect.
And those are the actual WinForm controls themselves, the
Yes.
text boxes,
Yes.
the buttons, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, good point. As we continue down the WinForms rabbit hole, probably the hardest part most developers get into with WinForms is threading management. Especially if you're used
Yes.
to JavaScript, you don't get threading management. You get one thread and you just have callbacks everywhere. WinForms, you have the main thread, which also happens to be your GUI thread, your UI thread. So if you do any sort of calls or anything else, your whole form and everything pauses, which is a horrible user experience. And so that's where there are some tools in the toolbox to help. What are those tools that we provide?
Well, the first thing is that when we execute something, we know will take time. And since we're working with Dynamics 365, we know things take time. Always. That's the first rule I learned 10 years ago when I came into this business. It's the 10-second rule. Everything, click something, wait for 10 seconds. Well, it's not that bad all the time, but you get the picture and you know you've been there. So we run things instead of just calling the method, executing it. We call it through a work async statement. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. I think work async is in the .NET framework platform itself. It's not something XrmToolBox specific, right?
No, the work async itself is something that I created for the XrmToolBox to help manage that, but it uses under the covers the standard background worker control found in the WinForm toolbox.
Okay, great. Okay. So you're wrapping that up inside one method.
Yeah, making it a little more simple.
And when we call that in our XrmToolBox tools, we call it with one parameter. That's the work async info object. And this one can contain message to show on this little yellow panel that shows up as soon as something takes time. With just some text there, we can pass parameters or arguments to this asynchronous method. Since we can get into threading issues, if you within your async method tries to read a value from a control in the UI, in some occasions you get into threading issues where the tool will explode and say that you cannot access this that was created on another thread and so on. And the same thing goes when you try to update controls from within another thread. I actually still don't know when you run into that and when you don't, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's why anything we need in our async method, we pass that as an argument in the work async info object that we pass to the work async method. And that can be actually the service that we use to call CRM with and so on, and the values from controls and so on.
Yeah, so the key point is anytime we do any sort of call to CRM, you always want to be wrapping it in that for two reasons. One was that whole process of it taking 10 seconds at times and causing everything to die. And the other issue is it will automatically connect to CRM if it needs to, or create the dialog to connect to CRM if it needs to before actually running your code. So you don't have to worry about, am I connected or not connected every single time. You just call your workflow async stuff, and it will handle through the base controls of, oh, I don't have a connection, let me go ahead and ping the user for a connection before I actually go through and process that. And I'm in the same boat as you are as far as the magic of when does it work or doesn't work, and just the rule of thumb is any sort of information you need, just pass it in as a parameter in the info object and then consume it from there. Don't just consume it because it happens to be in the same class.
Yeah, exactly. Another neat thing, I think, when with the async calls is that you can tell it to be cancelable, which means it's possible to interrupt the process at some stage. So if you, for instance, have a loop in your async code doing things, retrieving entities, whatever, and looping there, you can check the cancel state. And if the user has clicked the cancel button, you can stop the process. Well, if it proves that this would take too long, or the user just gets tired of it, you can still stop the process without having to wait for all these threaded asynchronous calls to come through. And also, if you hadn't done it in an async process or in another thread, it would not even be possible to click the cancel button because the form would be entirely unresponsive.
Yeah, that's the fun part to think of. It's always working through events, but if the whole thread on the UI is processing whatever you're doing, when you click on that, the application puts a event handler call, but it doesn't actually execute until the UI is done doing whatever it's doing in your call. So yes, that's a huge thing to make sure you understand.
Yeah. So we've spent some time on the async methods and how to use that. I think we should continue. So I think the next stage, when you have created your async calls or whatever, you have designed your UI, the first thing I want to do at least is to test my tool to see how it works. And you have to, since we're not running this DLL, you cannot run the DLL, that's the tool. You want to set up your debugging configuration in Visual Studio to say that on the debug page you set the XrmToolBox exe, that's from the Nugget package that the project uses. It's pushed to the debug folder probably if you're compiling in debug mode. So you set that, and you set a command line parameter that you can find in the documentation to make sure that it uses the tool DLL from the place where it's compiled, and not that XrmToolBox will use its default storage location, which is under app data somewhere. So you do that, and you finally also add a post-build event to move the plugin DLL to a subfolder called plugins, because that's where XrmToolBox will look for it. So when you've done that, you're all set to just hit F5 and start testing and debugging your tool.
And that's a good point. If you're used to doing WinForms development, you still need to go through and read the documentation on how to set that up correctly, because you're going to waste a whole lot of time if you try to figure it out yourself. So that's why we documented it, because it's something you need to know how to do. And once you do it, it's simple, but you need to do it.
Yeah, it's, as you say, it's really simple. It's a few simple steps, but well, it took some time to figure out the right sort of conditions to make that work, and just follow the docs, and you'll get it.
All right, so as a part of the tool itself, there are lots of different interfaces that you can optionally implement that light up some things for your plugins.
Exactly.
Let's walk through some of those. The simplest one, I think, is the iGitHub plugin interface, which is basically a way to say, hey, this tool is an open source tool, and it exists on GitHub, and you can set up the URLs to it, and then that way people can actually submit issues that you have with the plugin. So that's one that is a simple one to do. It's highly beneficial.
Exactly. So if you implemented a new menu option under I think it's under the About Help or something like that, About Feedback it is, then you get, there's one link to XrmToolBox feedback, and there will be another one for this specific tool. When you have the tool open, then you click that menu in the main form of the XrmToolBox.
Yep. It's a good point to mention that there's going to be, if you don't have a plugin open, there's only one option under that about for those help and feedback, and that's for the XrmToolBox itself. If you have a plugin open and that plugin implements an interface, it's going to show you the XrmToolBox itself, and then it'll also show you your tool's specific feedback issues for GitHub, as well as implement some of the other interfaces like About and iHelp as well.
Yeah, and this is a good place to say, make sure when you submit feedback for a tool that you actually click the feedback link for the tool and not for XrmToolBox. I don't know how many issues have been posted to the XrmToolBox sort of core repository for things that are specific tool related. We have two other quite similar and easy interfaces to implement. The iHelp plugin, which will basically let you specify a URL where the user can click in the menu in the same manner as well, and go to a help URL where you have documentation about your tool, and also the iAbout plugin interface, which basically lets you implement a method showing an about dialog of any kind you want, but it gets in the main menu. That's the whole trick of it.
Then you created the iMessage bus host, and when I heard you talking about that in our little Getter account, I was like, "What? You're going to do what?" No, but you knocked that one out pretty quickly. So what's the iMessage bus host?
Well, the secret to creating it quite quickly is not doing it yourself. It was a former colleague of mine. Yeah, Alexei Shidikov it's not Shitikov, it's Shitikov at InnoFactor who did this, and it's designed to enable tools to to talk to each other. So that, for instance, one very common thing is Natrai has created this export to Excel tool, and you can either select the data you want to export from a view in CRM, or you can also write your own fetch XML. And if you don't want to write it yourself, you click the Fetch XML Builder button in the Export to Excel tool, and it will open Fetch XML Builder. You type your query, or you sort of build your query there. You can click return the query to export to Excel, and it will sort of pass the fetch XML between the tools there. And this can, of course, pass any kind of information. You can pass any object you want. You can have a complex object or just a string or whatever, or nothing. You can use the button just to open another tool as well. So this is the iMessage bus host, where you have to implement a way of responding to calls and a way to call other tools, if you like.
Awesome. And the final one is the status bar messenger, which just allows you to put information on the status bar and the actual plugin and the actual toolbox itself. So
instead of having to add another status bar at the bottom of your own tool, you can utilize that there is already one in the XrmToolBox main window.
We don't want any status bar inception here.
No, exactly.
So if you're brand new to this and you've never done it before, you're going to want to look at what somebody else is doing and say, I want to do that in mine. So you have a pretty simple way of doing that, Jonas. How do you go out and do that?
Yeah, I actually, even when you've been doing this for quite some while, you still want to do this. Just the other day I was working on a tool and I needed to somehow display entity metadata information. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew, okay, this is available in Tanguy's own metadata browser. So what I did was fire up the metadata browser. I went, since he has implemented the iGitHub plugin interface, I could click the about feedback and go to the metadata browser repository on GitHub. It takes me to a page where I can create a new issue, but I'm in the repository. So from there, I can easily find the code I want to find, and it's super easy. I mean, a lot has been done in all these 130 something tools. So there's usually some help to get out there, or either you find good code that you copy, or you can perhaps realize that you want to use the message host to talk to the tool instead. Or, well, it's a good way to simply find code that's already been done.
Yeah. Go into the feedback and just go into that GitHub project. I still need to go and steal your, I need to go and take a look at and learn from your examples for logging everything to the logging service to be able to get information about where people are and what they're doing. So,
Yeah, you should do that.
I think it's funny sometimes when people are like, "Oh, you did this. Is it okay if I use it?" Like, it's open source. Use it.
Yeah.
I don't.
Don't even
Yes,
have to ask.
don't ask. Just go use it.
Yeah.
I would appreciate. Hey, I took it from here. Great. That would be awesome. But it's not even required. Just go and
Mhm.
use it. So, and there are some controls that are specific for the XrmToolBox. Some WinForms help
Yeah.
kind of do that. So, why
There
don't
are.
you walk through some of those for us?
Absolutely. This will help you sort of get started, not having to do all the things that that a lot of people before you have done already. And they are actually not bound to XrmToolBox. They are bound to working with WinForms and designed to work against CRM. And the first one I created is the CRM data grid, it's called. So you can have a data grid that's usually bound to a SQL table or a collection or something. In this case, it can connect to, or you can provide an entity collection from the CRM SDK as the data source, and it will render all the data from CRM that way. I use it in all kinds of tools, so that's really easy. And recently, Jim Novak has published a set of controls as well, entities list, which is a list view displaying metadata about entities where you can check them and have a look at all the details about it. There's also drop-down controls or combo boxes for entities or attributes and even solutions. So those are really good to make use of. You don't even have to sort of design the query to retrieve solutions. If you use a solution drop-down control, you just say that, okay, this one is now connected to this organization service, and it will automatically populate it. It's really easy to get started if you sort of take that shortcut.
No reason to reinvent the wheel. Totally.
No.
Totally. And so finally, let's wrap up real quick with we had one last sort of listener interaction here, and again we have Seth Bacon being very active on our Twitter handler at our XrmToolCast, asking, "What if I'm not a dev? What do I do with wanting to help start that, and what can I do?" You brought up a good point. We were talking about this, Jonas. Your example had to do with the CRM chart guy, right?
Yeah. The CRM chart guy, Ulrich. Yeah, he had, he knows his charts. He knows how to manipulate them and everything, but he doesn't know coding. Sorry, Ulrich, if I'm stepping on your toes or something. But so he found a guy who wanted to do the development. And I mean, that's another way. Of course, you can do it that way. So they teamed up and they have their small project team of two, one developer and one what do you call it? Stakeholder,
Yeah,
customer.
sure.
So they have created, I think, a couple of tools now, and they are really great. They're one of the most popular in the toolbox right now. So you can either do that, or I mean, just of course submit issues if you want a feature that's almost available, or you think this might be a new tool, and then you realize, okay, it could be just an extension of an existing one, and that's exactly what happened when. Gus Gonzalez wanted me to build a tool to easily delete lots of records at the same time. So I said, okay, I have this bulk data updater. Why not make it a bulk data deleter as well? So he asked me, and basically he submitted a new issue for bulk data updater. So it became also bulk data deleter. So okay, this is not development related really, but you really want to encourage everyone. So that contact, if you're not a developer but you see the need for a tool, it's easy to find who are active in the XrmToolBox space. Just reach out to someone and ask them if they are interested in doing a tool for you or together with you.
Or even if it exists, it might be good even to tweet to the XrmToolBox. Say, hey, does anyone have a tool that does this? Or would they be willing to make a tool that does this? And just get involved with the community. So even if you're not a developer,
Absolutely.
You can still help that. Because every single developer I talk to would love somebody to help them with documentation.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I'm open for any suggestions or proposals to help me with documentations.
Awesome.
And as Daryl said, contact XrmToolBox at XrmToolBox on Twitter, or contact us at XrmToolCast. Of course, we're not entirely into XrmToolBox. It's been a lot of XrmToolBox in the first episodes here, but we will have a look at other tools for CRM, XRM out there as well in future episodes.
Well, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think I'm good for now. Going back to sorting or organizing pictures from my ski trip.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. So hopefully this was a great episode for those that are interested in learning how to start their own plugin development and being able to take advantage of the large distribution system that the XrmToolBox has, as well as the great management that exists for managing your connections and not having to worry about managing all that yourself and all that kind of fun stuff. So hope this was helpful, and reach out to us if you have any questions. We love to hear them, or if you have any suggestions for future shows, reach out to us, and we would love to hear your feedback. You can email us at XrmToolCast@XrmToolBox.com, correct? Is that our email address? I forgot that.
No, that's incorrect. Cast@XrmToolBox.com.
Cast. All right. We had too many letters to write XrmToolCast. Just cast.
It will be in the show notes.
I need to get that. Right. Oh, unprofessional. Yeah.